Hi everyone, so in today's video I'm filming my March wrap up. March was my most successful reading month I think I've ever had in my entire life, and I managed to read 7 books in total. 3 of those were ebooks and the rest of them were all physical books. I had 2 5 stars, 1 4 star, 2 3 stars and 1 2.5 star. So on the whole it was a very good reading month. I never give out 5 stars, so to give 2 in 1 month was just like, it was a good month. But I have been kind of dreading filming this video. I seriously don't understand how people who read like 20 books a month manage to film these, because 7 is like stressing me out already. Without further ado, let's get into the video because I feel like it's gonna be a long one. So the first book I read in March was Better Than the Movies by Lynn. This was an ebook that I was reading throughout February, the end of February, and I was really excited to read it during that month because it was kind of rom-com and I thought it'd be really fun to read during the month of love. But obviously didn't finish it within that month. It's such a cute story. We follow Liz and Wes, and they are next door neighbours, but they're kind of like frenemies. They've gone to school together their whole lives and they were kind of family friends growing up, but they've not been close to each other and they kind of like have this like banterous feud going on between them. It's not really enemies, they just like bicker basically. Liz has had a crush on this boy who used to go to their school and he moved away to a different state. So when he turns back up to the school, she's like, senior year of high school, like I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna date this guy. So what she does is she like enlists Wes to fake date her to try and catch the attention of, well not even fake date, to kind of like just team up with her to kind of catch the attention of this boy, and in doing so realise that actually the person who's kind of like being a constant through her life is Wes. Better Than Movies is a book that I've seen kind of circulating the internet for a couple of years now. It came out a little while ago now, but a lot of people read it in 2022, and it was a book that I actually ended up giving 5 stars. I really enjoyed my time reading it, so I wrote down some notes as to why I thought it would deserve a 5 star. So first of all, I genuinely think it just nailed what it set out to do. So within kind of like a YA rom-com, it just ticked every single box. It was cute, it was funny, cheesy, but in like a way that was not kind of like cringy. It was honestly like the embodiment of one of those kind of like high school movies. So like parts of it were unrealistic, but in like a fun way where you didn't care, the way that you kind of feel like when you're watching one of those movies. Every single scene was suited to the age group of the characters, but it wasn't like an entirely innocent book. There's no spice in it, it's not even like closed door, like literally nothing happens, but it doesn't feel those scenes are being like avoided or taken out. It just felt kind of like realistic for that age group, and the priorities they had is in like school and friendships and things like that, and wanting to make their final year the best year ever all felt realistic, and I just really thought it was a really cute book. I literally loved every single character in it, even the ones that were annoying at first had like great character development, and I just all round thought it was just like 10 out of 10 book. So you know, my final comment here is I wrote all round cool and fun and nice, which is a Last Shadow Puppets quote. If you know that reference, then you're very cool and fun and nice. But yeah, just like really would recommend it. Personally not a huge YA reader at the moment, nor have I ever been a huge YA contemporary reader in my life. I really enjoyed Tweet Cute. I gave that one a 5 star I think at the time, or perhaps 4.5, but this was just like, and I would definitely be interested in reading more from this author. So the next book I read in March, got links on for this, because I read a little novella, which is essentially like a retelling of the prom scene, which the whole of Better Than the Movies is kind of leading up to. And so that one is called Better Than the Prom. So in Better Than the Movies we get Liz's perspective, this retelling of that scene told through Wes's perspective. I gave this book 2.5 stars. Maybe I should drop it to a 2. It was just not needed. It was not even something that I think you could say like, oh, it was done for the fans, because we honestly didn't get anything extra, like anything. Every single scene was mirror for mirror. We didn't need to know what was in Wes's head because it was like incredibly obvious what was happening throughout that scene. I just think this was unneeded, basically. It was such a quick book. It was literally like 60 pages or something, and I found it for free online, which I would definitely recommend you doing, because it's really like, it's not worth spending your money on this thing. Yeah, 2.5 stars. The next book I read was If Not Winter, Fragments of Sappho, which is a translation of Sappho's work by Carson. A great read because March was Women's History Month, and Sappho is, I think it's the earliest female poet or female writer even, from the classical period. We don't have any of Sappho's pieces in full. Everything we found was kind of partially destroyed or missing pieces, everything like that. So what this translator had done, translate as many of the words as she could, but then to put partial translations or kind of dashes where she thinks words were missing or lines were missing or anything like that, which meant that some of the poems you could kind of like figure out what that word could have been that is missing, but in some of them they really were just like too short to kind of process any meaning from. So overall I didn't rate this book because I felt like I couldn't get like a proper view of it. I also would be rating it on the translator's interpretation of it, which I didn't think was fair. Some of the poems truly astounded me. There was so much meaning within so few words. My Goodreads review is literally just all the poems that I loved that I've written out. So maybe I can read one or two to you. That could be fun. Stars around the beautiful moon hide back their luminous form whenever all the full she shines on the earth silvery. You came and I was crazy for you, and you cooled my mind that burned with longing. For the man who is beautiful to see, but the good man will at once also beautiful be. I simply want to be dead. Weeping she left me with many tears and said this, how badly things had turned out for us. Sappho, I swear against my will, I leave you. And I answered her, rejoice, go and remember me, for you know how we cherished you. But if not, I want to remind you, and beautiful times we had. For many crowns of violets and roses at my side you put on, and many woven garlands made of flowers around your soft throat. Stunning. Then other times, it was like makeup bag, and that's truly an entire poem, so you can see why I was conflicted. So we've gone through all of the ebooks that I read, so I'm going to get into the physical copies I have here. So first of all, we have Jane Birkin's Monkey Diaries, 1957 to 1982. So I've talked about this book 1,000 times on my channel. I was giving you hints about how much I was enjoying it before I finished it. I did finally finish this in March. I've had this going since November. I'd loved kind of dipping into it and taking my time with it because I was enjoying it from page 1. I loved every single second, and I felt this immense sadness when I finished it. I've been following her life since November. It's like I'd been existing alongside her, and she felt like a kind of dear friend to me by the end of this. Diaries are a way of seeing a celebrity in a different light from how you might in a memoir or an autobiography. I truly believe there was like very little editing done. There's so much of her emotion just on full display for you. I really connected with this because I related to her as both a woman and just a human being. There were some moments that her life mirrored my own. For example, she got sent to Paris when she was a teenager. I did the same thing. I moved to Paris when I was 18, and like her relationship with her brother and everything like that, it just felt like little mirrors into my own life. But also at the same time, Jane Birkin is like a singer and a movie star. Even when she was doing these activities that I'll probably just never experience in my own lifetime, I was able to relate to her because her emotions were human emotions, and I think that's something that I could gain from a non-fiction book about someone's life, but particularly diaries about someone's life. She tells you exactly how it is, and it makes your own living experience so much easier when you're dealing with things that are a bit more difficult, because you can see someone else who seems so glamorous and gorgeous, which in many ways she is, but she's also just a human being at the end of the day, and I found that a great kind of comfort. I love Jane Birkin. I've always found her very interesting. The reason why I was drawn to this book, but honestly, I think having read this entire book, by the end of it, I feel like I would have picked this up had it been about anyone, because while I love the insights into professional life, her personal life, which is just the same you could get from anyone's diaries if they were this open and honest about them and wrote this candidly, was something that I kind of would have appreciated from anyone, no matter their kind of like celebrity status. So I'm definitely interested in picking up more diaries. If you have any recommendations, I'd love to hear them. I know it's like kind of unfair to rate diaries, but 5 out of 5 stars. I just loved every minute of this, to go through and catch up on my annotations for the rest of it. Really excited to kind of revisit the story through that. So I finished Monkey Diaries and I was feeling pretty sad. So I decided to throw myself full into the novel that I've been reading and get it finished, because I've been reading this one quite slowly, and that is Lapvona by Ottessa moshfegh. So this is a journey. Lots of people call this magical realism, but it is just truly a fantasy through and through. It's set in a fictional land. The particular fiefdom that this book is about is called Lapvona, hence the title of the book. So in this story, primarily from Marek, and he is the son of a shepherd in the fiefdom of Lapvona. A fiefdom was basically a plot of land and a people ruled over by the lord, and he was kind of in charge of that section. All the taxes and things kind of went to him. We do follow the lord in this as well, whose name is William, and he is besties with Father Barnabas, who is the priest of Lapvona, who was taught but also doesn't have a clue about what he's talking about. He literally doesn't know any story in the Bible other than the birth of Jesus, which actually at the end of this book he forgets. So this man is truly all the form and no idea, no real faith himself. William is a very kind of like simple soul. Father Barnabas kind of takes that to his advantage, and together they kind of control the people within the fiefdom based on the people's kind of gullibility and their own personal greed. As someone who does have a Christian faith, this was really, really interesting to read. I was hesitant going into it because I've heard that it was a critique on religion, but actually it was much more a heavy critique on organised religion than it was on faith. This was not Ottessa being like, faith is pointless and you're all stupid for believing in something. It was her highlighting the contrast between how different organised religion is from having a faith. So many times we can get caught up in the kind of form of church and the dedication of a religion over having a relationship with God. So it was a really kind of welcome critique for me, and I felt it really showed how wrong people can get that and how wrong people can kind of understand God, or how greatly they can misunderstand him. The people's connection to God is so much more through their daily lives and their relationship with nature and their appreciation of what they have over showing up in church every Sunday, or kind of doggedly following the priest and then the Lord through him. Organised religion was so much more about the priest who didn't have a faith than it was about the God himself. One thing I would say with this book is I absolutely adored studying it. It's an incredibly well written book. There's so much meaning behind each line. It's one of those ones that truly, like, it could be a textbook within school if it weren't so disgustingly grotesque, which is something I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, there were some pages in this where I just honestly like annotated so much, and I've got my writing all over it, lines that are all underlined. It felt like it was feeding my brain, which I love. It's something I really missed from school actually, is English classes, and I was gonna say literature but language too, and kind of the deep analysis of a book. I found it really lovely to kind of return to that a little bit. But like I did briefly touch on, this book is truly disgusting in part. You get kind of like a physical reaction from it because it's so hideous. There's lots of like kind of gross things scattered throughout, but this book is split up into spring, summer, autumn, winter, and then spring, I think it is. During the summer portion there is a drought, and many people die. Those who do not die kind of go mad with their hunger and their thirst, resort to horrible things, deeds, and that was just awful. I was honestly so glad when that season was over, because I was like, oh my goodness, couldn't handle much more of that. So overall I gave this book a 4-star, but a critique I would have with it probably is that it was a little bit too disgusting. I don't think that was necessary. I haven't read anything else by Moshfegh, but I do think that that is kind of a characteristic of her writing. That's what I've kind of come to believe. I own 2 others of her books, and I'll let you know how I find those, but I think this is truly like hideous in sections. But I really do recommend it. Like I said, if you liked any of the themes I kind of mentioned or anything like that, I think it really deserved a 4 stars, but it didn't get the 5-star for my kind of true enjoyment of it, because I just couldn't get past some scenes. Also, the ending is slightly ambiguous. I looked it up on Reddit and I saw people's different interpretations, and I came to appreciate it a lot more. So if you finish this book, very final scene, you're like, what on earth was that? Go to Reddit. I might even link the page down below. But don't read it unless you've read the book, obviously. So while I was finishing off Lapvona, I realised that I couldn't really read that book at night time because I was so disgusted by so much of it, and I was just like, I'm going to be put in this horrible state and I won't be able to sleep. So I'm going to pick up something completely polar opposite, which I can read before bed and I can keep Lapvona to during the daytime. So I picked up Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. So this is the first book in the Addicted series. This is a kind of like 10-part contemporary romance series. I did an entire one book focused reading vlog for this book, so if that's something you're interested in seeing, if you want to hear more of my thoughts, then I will definitely have it linked up on the screen and down below. But in this book we follow Lily and Lo. They're 2 people who are struggling with addictions. Lily's addicted to sex and Lo is addicted to alcohol. They kind of enable each other and they hide their addictions from their parents and their siblings. So a lot of this is kind of very internal and about this kind of strange dynamic that Lily and Lo have, and their kind of fake dating that kind of turns into something a bit more than that. Throughout this book we're introduced to other characters who become their friends. They are people who are more involved in the later books in the series, which I'm really excited to get to because I loved the side characters probably more than the main ones. Overall I gave this book a 3 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think the first one was a good setup to the series, but I think I'm going to expect more things from the later books. So yeah, that is Addicted to You. If you want to hear more information, like I said, you can check out the vlog, which is spoiler free. I should have said that earlier. And the very last book that I read in 2023, what am I talking about? In March 2023 was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. So in March I watched the animated Alice's Adventures in Wonderland for the very first time. I'd seen like an old version, live action one, not the Johnny Depp one, the one before that, years and years ago when I was a little girl, but I'd never watched the animation. And I've got so many people in my life who absolutely love it, so I decided to visit that. And then that kind of inspired me to pick up the book because I was like, what better time to read it than after I'd just seen that. So this is actually a bind up of the first book and Through the Looking Glass, but the book I read is only the first 50% of this. So overall I gave Alice's Adventures in Wonderland 3 stars, and I know lots of people were excited when I picked this one up, and I'm sorry to disappoint anybody who wanted to see me love it, but I think the overall feeling I got with this was that I would have enjoyed it so much more as a child. I feel regrets that I didn't read it as a child. I think it was just one of those things that is so strange. It's so clever because it's just this perfect kind of look into a child's really active imagination, but also when you just have one of those insane dreams where everything happens and it's just all over the place. That's what this felt like, but because of that it was just kind of like every single thought that come into his brain he'd written down on the paper. It was something that I could not like kind of connect to, which I think is something that I need to feel in order to rate a book highly, for there to be more of a meaning behind it. I did understand the overall message of this book. Individually, throughout each scene and whatever, there was not anything kind of deeper you could see from it. The last couple of pages of this book do kind of justify it a little bit more. They explain themselves a little bit more. We switched to Alice's sister, but I still didn't get enough really. At some point in the read, I wanted to figure out why this was such a well-loved classic. So I found an article which was talking about this book. I think it was written by the Financial Times. I'll have it linked. It just kind of explained things, the controversy behind him, and I was just like, I kind of did not want to know that before I read the book necessarily, so I kind of regret having read that before having finished this book, because it does kind of taint your view of him a little bit. But in this collection, I did want to say, there is an Easter letter that Lewis Carroll writes to the real Alice, and it's so beautiful. I just loved it, and so I do think that his writing is very good. I just don't think this plot and this storyline, these characters, were necessarily something that I loved. So there you have it, everybody. Those are the 7 books that I read in March. I'm absolutely losing my voice right now, so I'm gonna go and have a glass of water and a coffee so I can get some energy back as well. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you liked hearing my thoughts on all of these books. I had a really successful reading month in March, and I liked pretty much every single thing I got to. And like I said, it's really rare to have those 2 5-stars, so I'm just over the moon that that occurred during the month. Thank you so much for spending your time with me here. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up so I can tell that you did. I've already uploaded my TBR for April, so I'll have that linked up here and down below. You can subscribe to stick around and see what other books I get to in the future. I'll see you on Saturday for another video. Bye.